You know, in just about every single civic conflict we face, there's one question that can cut through all the noise, a question that we almost always ask last, if we ask it at all. Today, we're going to flip that script and put it first. Who should be the one to decide?
I mean, it's exhausting, right? It feels like our public life is just this constant, never-ending battle. Every single issue gets blown up into a national crisis, and everyone is fighting for that one perfect top-down solution. We just argue endlessly about what the right answer is.
But what if we're putting all that energy in the wrong place? What if the real key to a calmer, more productive civic life isn't about finding the one right answer, but about asking the one right question first? And that is the core idea we're digging into today. The Constitution isn't just a list of things the government can and can't do. It's more like a blueprint for how we make decisions. And it shows us that a lot of our so-called policy crises are actually crises of authority. Because when the wrong group makes the call, it's liberty itself that takes the hit. All right, so here's our roadmap. First, we'll explore why asking who decides is so critical. Then, we'll get into the huge difference between raw power and proper authority. After that, we'll map out the 4 levels of decision-making, see why that structure is so vital for freedom, and finally, talk about the essential role that you, the citizen, play in protecting the whole thing. Okay, first up, the question before the answer. This is all about reframing how we even look at these problems. Before we ever get into a debate about what to do, we first have to agree on who has the legitimate right to do it in the first place. Now, to really get this, we have to nail down a foundational concept for any free society. And that is the critical distinction between just having power and having the proper authority to actually use it.
Yeah, let's break this down because it's super important. On one side, you've got power. That's just raw capability. A government might have the physical ability to do something, but on the other side, you have authority, and that is the legitimate, recognized right to act. The whole point of the Constitution is to make sure that decisions are only being made by those who have the proper authority, not just the raw power. And when that line gets crossed, when power is used without authority, well, the consequences are pretty severe. Decisions start to feel coercive, not legitimate. It gets way harder to hold anyone accountable for their actions. Trust in our institutions just dissolves. And at the end of the day, our liberty hangs in the balance. Okay, so how does the Constitution actually assign that authority? Well, it gives us this really clear architecture for a free society, and it's organized into 4 distinct levels. It all starts at the ground floor, with you and your family. Things like your personal beliefs, your conscience, how you run your daily life, that authority starts there. Then you go up a level to your local community. This is for daily life stuff like schools, local roads, public safety, things where accountability is direct and personal. Then you have the state level, which kind of acts as a mediator, allowing different communities to find different solutions. And finally, way up at the top, you have the national level, which is supposed to be limited to only truly national issues, like national defense. The whole structure is designed to keep power as close to the people as possible.
So, that's the framework. But why does it matter so much? Why is sticking to it so critical today? Well, because the temptation to just ignore it's constant. And the cost of giving into that temptation is incredibly high. And this gets to the heart of why the process itself is so darn important. Think about it. When people believe a decision was made by the right group through a fair process, they are so much more likely to accept the outcome, even if they don't personally agree with it. Agreeing on who should decide is the foundation of peaceful government. It just brings the temperature down on everything. But there's always a but, isn't there? There's this huge temptation to just push every single problem all the way to the top, to centralize everything. It feels efficient. It promises these one-size-fits-all solutions that are quick and uniform and seems so certain. And you have to admit, that's a pretty tempting promise. Yeah, but that promise of efficiency comes with a huge price tag. When you centralize everything, you strip local communities of their own responsibility. You steamroll right over important cultural and regional differences. And worse, when a mistake is made at the top, its impact is magnified everywhere. Over time, it just hollows out public trust.
And all of this brings us to the most important piece of the puzzle, your role. Because here's the thing, this whole constitutional structure, it doesn't protect itself. It needs active guardians. It needs us.
The absolute core virtue we're talking about here is responsibility. But what does that really mean in this context? It means having the wisdom to know what is yours to decide, and maybe even more importantly, having the self-control and the restraint to know what isn't. A free society truly depends on citizens who get that balance right.
So, let's make this practical. Here's your plan of action. First, just pick a civic issue you care about right now. Next, before you even think about the solution, just stop and ask, who should be deciding this? Is it really a national issue, or is it something for the state, the local community, or maybe even just for individuals to decide? Then, actually explain to yourself why that level is the right one. And finally, and this is the hard part, practice restraint. Resist that easy urge to demand a big national solution for a problem that could and should be handled closer to home.
At the end of the day, we have to remember that liberty doesn't just erode when leaders grab for too much power. It's just as threatened when we, the citizens, demand that they solve every problem for us, basically inviting them to overstep their proper authority. And that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. A real commitment to this idea means accepting that another town or another state might make a different choice than yours. And as long as it's within constitutional limits, well, that's exactly how the system is supposed to work. So the question for each of us is this: am I willing to accept that diversity of outcomes? Answering that honestly is the very first step toward becoming a true guardian of proper authority.